Hi there, my name is Jonathan Reff and we're here at Selma Fitting. Today we have a great video series going over Olympic Taekwondo. Today on this series I'm going to go over basic techniques, footwork. We'll go over some kicks starting with a roundhouse kick. We're going to show you some more advanced jump kicks with the roundhouse. We're going to go over axe kick. We'll do the same with axe kick and show you a more advanced version. We're going to then go to cut kicks. We'll go to back kicks, a spinning hook kick, and then at the end finish off with some sparring and show you a practical use of how one might execute those kicks and bring them together functionally. Olympic Taekwondo is predominantly a kicking art and very famous for very powerful, very quick and deceptive kicks. Now the kicks can go from the waist up, legal target area or scored target areas from the waist up, waist being your hips, chest, your hips, stomach, chest, as well as the head and the neck, and the power is such that there are quite a few knockout kicks, and it's certainly knockout power. Many of the kicks are spin kicks or double or triple kicks in the air, and one generates quite a bit of power and is able to debilitate or stop an opponent in that way. Now, as far as myself, I've been practicing the Olympic Taekwondo for over 10 years, over a decade. I have been a quarterfinalist at the 2002 U.S. Nationals. I was three-time Maryland State Champion, as well as a bronze medalist at New Jersey State Championships and silver medaled at the U.S. Cup twice. I've also fought abroad in Europe. Taekwondo has been my passion for that time and will continue to be for the rest of my life. And from this series, I hope that you guys take these basics and then go to other studios and other instructors and continue your careers as a practitioner in that way. It's very important that you don't do this on your own and don't go back out into, say, for example, a friend's backyard and try and practice these on him or her. Safety is such that, you know, these kicks are very, very advanced and can be very powerful, and you need to have the proper equipment, the proper pads and protective equipment on your head, a mouth guard. There's a chest protector, which you'll see in later segments, as well as foot and arm pads, which we don't go over, but they are utilized when you begin as a practitioner. So it's very important to keep safety in mind and enjoy yourself as much as you can. And again, I hope you take from this as much as you can and then continue practicing happily for years to come. Thanks very much. Again, my name is Jonathan Reff, and I hope you enjoy this segment. Jonathan here at Selma Fitting. Again, we're going over Olympic Taekwondo. This segment's going to go over and review footwork. Now, there are a few basic stances, basic footwork positions in Taekwondo that enable a person to then move on to more complicated, more advanced sparring, and more complicated footwork combinations. Now, I'm going to parallel you guys and give you a frontal view of my body as I'm standing in what would be considered fighting stance. Now, fighting stance is different for every person. It's a very kind of personal stance. I'm going to have my feet hip width apart or a little wider than hip width apart, and I'm going to come on to the balls of my feet. So I'll have my heels slightly raised off of the floor. Now my weight is going to be distributed 65-35, 60-40, more weight on the front leg than is on the back leg, and I'll explain why in a second. So as I take that position with my heels just slightly off of the floor, my hands are going to come up. I'm going to keep my hands up with fists clenched with my elbows tucked in. Now the elbows are very important to keep the elbows tucked in. We don't want them wide. We want to tuck them in. They're going to protect my abdomen and stomach, ribs as well. Here, for example, even if I stood here and absorbed a kick, my forearms really act as a guardrail to protect my rib cage and my stomach. So it's very important to keep my elbows tucked in. Now my fists and my hands protect my upper body and my head, which is quite vulnerable, or can be vulnerable, to kicks to the head and knockout kicks. Again, Taekwondo is a kicking art. The kicks are very, very powerful, and they're knockout power, and they come very quickly and very deceptively. So it's very necessary to have your guard up at all times. Now the areas of the head that I'm going to be protecting will be my temples, the bridge of my nose, my chin. And so I'm doing that with my hands, fists clenched, reason being that loose fingers will get broken if they're hit by a foot. So I'm here, I'm going to bounce just softly, again with my heels off of the ground, and what I'm going to think about doing is going forward and back just slightly. Now for this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and roll up my pant leg. Now again, my feet are hip width apart. I'm on the balls of my feet, so my heels are just slightly off of the ground. I again want to think about just gliding across the floor. And I'm doing like an inch forward and back step. And we'll number those 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now that's the very most basic kind of footwork combination that one would use in sparring. Now to add on to that, there are a few other techniques. One being a chunjin step, the Korean pronunciation, which would be a step forward. So as we step in Taekwondo, we're not going to step one foot at a time. Rather, we would step both feet at once. Reason being, it saves less time. And again, you're always thinking about how am I going to attack my opponent or execute an attack on my opponent as quickly and as decisively and deceptively as I can. So here, as I'm moving forward and forward, back and forth, I'm going to then take a step forward, which is about 6 inches. And again, that doesn't have to be specifically 6 inches. I'm just, again, imagining that I have somebody in front of me and I want to close that distance. So again, if I step back, I'm here going forward and back, forward and back. I'm going to take that chunjin step forward. And if you notice, my feet do not move 1, 2, but they move 1 together. And chunjin forward. Now, the reverse of that is called a hujin step. Again, that's the Korean pronunciation, and that's a backward step. So, again, I'm here, let's say I chunjin forward, then let's say my opponent decides to attack, and I want to trap him with something else, and I hujin back. Now, the hujin step changes things just slightly. What we're going to do for a hujin step is we're going to take the left leg, in this case, which is my back leg, and gently raise it off of the floor, just, I would say, 2 inches maximum. And for the most part, whatever steps you're doing, you want to think of your feet just kind of gliding along water or gliding along the kind of base of the floor. So I'm never raising my feet too high, except when I'm really actually executing a kick. So again, in a hujin step, I'm going to take my left leg, my back leg, just a few inches off of the ground. That's going to be kind of like the trigger that pulls that barrel back so that the bullet can then shoot actually in this direction back. So again, I'm here, back and forth. My foot comes up, and I hujin back. So we have then basic fighting stance. We have a chunjin step forward and a hujin step back. Now, to moving along, adding on to that, you'd have a step forward, which again now I'm going to come to face the camera. So you are my opponents, the viewers, and I'm here, and let's say I need to really cover a greater distance. What I'm going to do then is I'm envisioning kind of like a balance beam or being on a balance beam, and that's the distance or the width that I'm going to stay within. So as I'm here and I need to cover more distance forward, I'm going to step forward. And stepping back. So as I'm stepping, I'm not going to step circular. What I'm going to do is I'm going to step forward and allow my legs to brush, and I'm here quickly. So once again, I'm here, I'm relaxed, I've decided what I want to do, and I'm forward. Now I can add 2 to those to really cover distance. And then that becomes more of a running step. And so as you add to the running step, you can then proceed that with some kicks. Now, from there, we have a forward step. We as well have a reverse step, which is a backward step. Now, the backward step can happen in 2 manners. One is a little more advanced than the other. Now, I could do a simple backward step where I'm here. Let's say you, the viewer, have stepped forward and engage me. I'm going to then, again, just like I stepped forward, brush my legs back and step back. Again, on the balls of my feet, and I'm back and back. Here I am again, and back and back. Now, I'm stepping back, in essence, towards my right, with my right leg. So my right leg goes back towards my right. And if I want to step back with my left leg, towards my left. Now I can also do 180 degrees kind of in the opposite direction, which becomes more of a circular technique by taking my right leg towards my left and turning towards my left. And so I'm here, relaxed, and what I'm going to do is I'm taking my right leg, and for a quick second I'm going to give you my back, but it is literally a quick second. Now that's where the it becomes more advanced, lays in the fact that you do have to give your back for a quick second, so you want to be aware of that, because you certainly do not want to give your back to an opponent for too long. I mean, it needs to be literally a fraction of a second. So I'm here, I step forward and step back. And we can add 2 to that, and I could step back and step back, step forward, step forward. And with each more advanced, more complicated technique, it requires me to have a fair amount of balance, body awareness, and center of gravity. I need to be really aware of my center as I turn back and turn back, or turn back and turn back. And if we had here a balance beam, I would be securely on that at all times. And so I'm visualizing a small little lane, and that's where my feet are going. So regardless of whether I'm here, I'm chunjining or hujining, I'm stepping forward, stepping back, stepping back, stepping forward. There's a whole slew of combinations that can be utilized on the mats in a tournament scenario. So that is footwork in a nutshell for Taekwondo, and we covered very basic and a little bit more complicated footwork, I'd say more moderate footwork, that can be used in sparring. What's coming up next is a round kick. Thanks very much. Hi, Jonathan here at SomaFit. Today we're learning about Olympic Taekwondo. And the first technique we're going to go over is the roundhouse kick. The roundhouse kick I'm going to teach you in 4 simple steps. Olympic Taekwondo is most famous for the power of its kick, the quickness of its kick, the quickness of its sparring, and the deceptiveness of the techniques. So I'm going to start in my fighting stance. My fighting stance is such that I'm going to have about 65-35 weight distribution, meaning that there's more, or the majority of my weight is on the front leg. I'm on the balls of both of my feet. My hands or my guard is up, my fists are clenched, and my spine and body's upright and neutral. Now as I'm moving, I'm going to take 1 step forward and raise my knee. We're going to call that step 1. Step 2, I'm going to rotate on the ball of the weight-bearing leg, meaning the leg that I'm standing on. Step 3, I'm going to extend my leg to the target area. I'll drop my leg down, and then step 4 will be a 180-degree turn back to where I started from. So again, I'm here in my fighting stance. We're going for step 1, the knee goes up. Rotating for step 2. Snap the leg out for 3. Drop the foot down and come 180 degrees back. Sped up, it looks like this. And then when I really speed it up to generate power and make it functional for fighting, it's almost too hard to see the individual steps. These kicks can also go to the head. We'll go ahead and raise the target up. And so what happens here is, as I begin, again, the exact same as I started for the body kick, my knee is going to come up higher. Wherever the knee goes, the foot's going to end up. And so we're either knocking the wind out of our opponent's stomach and abdomen, or knocking our opponent out with a kick to the temple, bridge of the nose, or chin. And there it is. Now I'm going to show you a third variation on the roundhouse kick, which is actually called a double kick. It involves 2 roundhouses while the person executing them is in the air, being me. And target areas on my opponent will be number 1, the leg, could be number 2, the body, and number 3, the head or upper body. Now, what you want to think of while you're executing this kick is you need to think of your opponent as a ladder, and your feet are climbing up that ladder to reach their top target, which essentially should be the head. We're going to put the targets out. My back leg is going to start. Now I'm going to try and do my best to show you this slow motion. We're going to step forward again, just like the roundhouse. I'm going to bring my knee up. I'll extend the leg to make contact with the paddle. Now once my foot, go ahead and come back. Once my foot makes contact with the paddle, I've just hit my opponent. He's then going to want to move back because human nature is such that we don't actually want to get hit. So as I make contact, he's moving back. Before my leg touches the ground, I'm coming off with a second kick. And again, that's a second roundhouse. So quickly, it looks like this. Now let's try it with the second half of the kick going to the head for a knockout. The only thing that's changing here again is my knee going up higher. And that's how you perform various roundhouses. The next kick coming up is the axe kick. Hi, Jonathan again at Soma Fit. We're learning about Olympic Taekwondo. The next technique we're going to be going over is the axe kick. As I face my opponent, again in my fighting stance, which if you'll remember from before, from the roundhouse, weight distribution is greater on the front leg. I'm on the balls of my feet. My guard, meaning my fists are clenched and my elbows are tucked in. Now, the kick again starts exactly the same way as the roundhouse does. This again is a characteristic that is very typical of just Olympic Taekwondo and makes its kicks very deceptive. And that's the reason why they're so effective, is because my opponent, if I'm setting things up properly, really doesn't know which kick is coming at any given time. So again, I'm here in my fighting stance. I'm going to, for step one, raise my knee up. Now here my knee has to come up high because I've got to get my foot to that target, which is approximately at my collarbone or face level. I'm going to then again extend my leg to bring it down on the target, have my foot drop on the ground, and I'll come back 180 degrees. So in steps, I'm going to take my knee of my right leg and swing it forward and up towards my opponent. My hips are going to come forward, generating a fair amount of significant power. I'm going to then extend my leg out to the target, bring it down as it touches the ground with a good amount of momentum as an axe or a hammer would do. I'm going to then slide it back 180 degrees. Sped up, it looks like this. Now if I stop here, you'll notice, as I discussed on the previous kick, the power that's generated by the hips is really the main source of power here. So what I want to do when I come forward towards my target, I'm really pulling my hips up, which will allow me to raise my knee up real high to meet the target, which is the paddle in this case. I'm coming up high and whipping down just like an axe, and thus the name axe kick. So target areas, this kick for the most part is a head kick, so that I can come down right on the bridge of the nose of my opponent. I can come down on the chin. I can come down on the forehead. I can come down on the collarbone, which can be very painful and debilitating. Let's go ahead and run through a few more kicks. Now there is one variation of this kick, which is a double kick or a jumping axe kick. We're going to set that up the same exact way. My opponent's going to hold up just one paddle at the face. My back leg is going to start to generate the power, which in this case is my left leg. My left leg sliding forward and up towards my right leg. As it meets the right leg, my right leg is going to shoot out and come down on that target. So that was the axe kick. The next two kicks we're going to go over are cut kick and fast kick. Hi, I'm Jonathan. We're here again at Soma Fit going over and looking at Olympic Taekwondo. The next two kicks we're going to be learning is the cut kick, which I'm showing now, and in addition to that, the fast kick later. We'll start and go back to my fighting stance. My weight is distributed a little more on my front leg. I'm on the balls of my feet. I'm going to start here in a pendulum or in a kind of a pendulum-like swing. So my back leg, which in this case is my left leg, is going to swing to meet my right leg. As that happens, the minute they touch, almost like the trigger to a gun, I'm going to then raise my knee up quickly, thrust my foot out so that my heel is really leading the rest of my body. And again, hips really have to do so much with executing a proper kick or making sure that you're going to get that power there. My hips are almost turned in such a way that I'm almost turning my back to my opponent, but not quite. But I really want to think about pushing my hip towards my opponent. So again, slowly, my left leg swings like a pendulum to its right leg. My right knee is raised from my right leg. You have to imagine I'm already in forward motion here. I'm going to extend my leg out so that my heel hits. As that heel hits, my foot comes down and step back. And so I'm essentially stepping back into my sparring stance just as I went forward with leg to leg. So here I go leg to leg, and here I go leg to leg. Let's go ahead and have the target in front. You'll see that this kick, for the most part, is a kick that goes predominantly to the hips and the torso. And it's not a kick that would be thrown to the head. Biomechanically, it would be an easy kick to move away from or duck, and we don't want that. Our goal is to hit our opponent and strike them with as much power and force as we can, displacing their body and making it so that they can't continue. So speaking of that, we have Samir here in a chest protector, which is a piece of safety equipment that is used in sparring as well as training as well. And it's basically condensed foam that surrounds your torso. As you can see, there are 3 blue circles across the center of this chest protector, which mark the target areas of this chest protector, or hogu as it's referred to in Korean. This is where essentially I'm going to plant my feet. And the noise that's made when this happens is a popping sound like a smack, or in this case a hard smack from my foot or instep. This again prevents from bones being broken, but again does not absorb any of the trauma past that. In addition to that, a foam target, which is approximately 6 inches thick of foam, and allows me to really execute whatever technique I'm practicing on with my full amount of power without injuring my opponent too much. And again, this is solely used for training, and we would not use this in a sparring scenario. So again, this kick really displaces my opponent or knocks him away from me or down. As I'm doing that, I'm already thinking of a second technique to score on him with. So I'm not going to execute the second technique, but you're going to see its intent in this example. And that's the second kick. Could have come from my left foot, could have come from my right foot. But again, I'm pushing him off of his center and thinking of his head as the target area. So that's a cut kick. Next kick coming up is a back kick. Hi, Jonathan here at SomaFit. Again, we're going over Olympic Taekwondo. This technique coming up is the back kick. I'm setting up this kick, again, in my fighting stance, which has weight distributed a little more on my front leg. I'm on the balls of my feet. Now this technique is a little different in that it's more of a defensive technique. So what I'm doing here is I'm waiting in my fighting stance for my opponent and my target to come forward. So essentially this is more of a defensive trap. So what I'm doing, my opponent steps forward and initiates the confrontation. I'm going to turn here, will be my first step. And that again involves rotation on the balls of both feet. Now as I turn, I've given my opponent my back, but I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm then going to raise my back leg, which in this instance is my right leg. The knee comes up just like the first few kicks. It's tight to the body, which again is a characteristic of Olympic Taekwondo. As that knee stays up and comes up, I'm going to then thrust my foot with my heel leading straight back to hit the target and push and kick my opponent away from me. From this point, I'm going to then rotate 180 degrees back to where I started from. Now this has, again, two variations that I'm going to show, which are both jump kicks. Now the first one is just very simply a jump back kick, and is set up in the exact same manner, except as my opponent comes forward, he's already initiated the confrontation or the movement. I'm going to turn, but as I turn and rotate, I'm going to lift both feet and jump in the air. As I jump, I'm thinking about jumping up, but also in towards my opponent. So without the kick, the jump will look like that. But again, you have to imagine that will be preceded by a fully extended leg. That's the jumping back kick. I'm going to show you now a double jumping back kick, which involves a cut kick immediately preceded by a back kick in the air without your feet touching the ground. So as I have my opponent here with my target, I'm again thinking of him as a ladder. And so I'm using my feet to climb up the rings of the ladder to get to the target area that I want. So meaning my first kick's going to plant low. I'll plant my second kick. I can plant it at any given height or interval. I'm going to go ahead and pendulum my legs forward. As I pendulum forward, my left knee, in this case my front leg, is coming up. My leg's going to touch the pad. As I make contact with that pad, I'm going to then push off of that, using him like a ladder, and kick with the back kick to really hit with force and power. And as you can see, my first kick hits, and the second kick follows with a harder power level and at a different height. Those are the variations of the back kick. Next kick will be spinning hook kick. Hi, Jonathan again. We're here at SomaFit learning about Olympic Taekwondo. The next technique we're going over is the spinning hook kick. The spinning hook kick, again, I'm going to start with in my fighting stance with my right leg behind me. My target here for the most part is the upper body, being the collarbone and the head. And the target area on the head could be the temple or the chin. And again, this is a knockout kick, a knockout technique. So I'm facing my opponent. I'm going to then very quickly rotate on the balls of my feet. Now, the spinning hook kick, being that it's named spinning, is a circular kick. So as I rotate on the balls of my feet, I'm thinking about rotating in a small circle, but again, a very tight one, so that my legs stay close to the body, which I've gone over before as being a characteristic of Olympic Taekwondo. And that's what makes these kicks so powerful and deceptive. So I'm rotating. As I'm rotating, I'm going to use the momentum of my, in this case, right elbow to pull me all the way around. As my knee is raised of my right leg, again, because I'm kicking with my right leg, I'm going to then shoot my leg out, come around, hit the target, and spin again 180 degrees to start from where I began from. That's the spinning hook kick. Coming up next will be punching techniques and blocks.